Right, welcome back to my channel, everyone. This is going to be part 1 of 3 of the Astra 32 Smith & Wesson Long. In this video, we will be stripping the gun down completely and getting it ready to polish, clean, and then finally, the last video will be reassembly. Hope you enjoy. As always, most important, before we start any of these projects or cleaning any firearm, make sure it's unloaded, mags are away from it, there's no round in the chamber. So before we get started with stripping the firearm down, let's make sure it's safe to handle. We can see that there are no rounds in the cylinder and the gun is ready to be stripped down. Right, so first off, we're going to be using a flat screwdriver to remove the grips off of the gun. Turning the screw anti-clockwise to remove it. And there we have the grips off. So we'll just get a little container to keep all of our parts safe. There's quite a few little parts in here that we need to just keep to one side. So first off, what we're going to want to do is remove the cylinder from the gun. So what we'll do is loosen the first bolt, which is again a flat screw. And when we open this, it should push straight out and become separated from the gun. So now that we have the two separated, we can move the chassis out of the way and look at the cylinder specifically. So looking at the cylinder, we're going to want to release the push rod. We do this by turning it clockwise. Just be careful, there are springs inside here, and it will come into different components. Like so. Right, so as we'll get to cleaning these just now, I'm just going to slide the spring back on and the catch back in order to just put it to one side so that none of these little springs and stuff get caught out. So I'll move those out of the way and we can look at the chassis. Right, so now that we've got all the external components out of the gun itself, we can start stripping down the rest of the side catch of the chassis in order to expose the hammer springs and all of those components that we can just clean off, spray, and get nice and clean. As this gun's going back into storage, I just like to ensure that everything is as clean as possible and as well lubricated so that as not to allow any of the parts to rust. Great, so now that we've got the screws all out, what I usually do is just take a little flat screwdriver and get it underneath, and this catch will pop up and off of the gun. Right, so always good practice if you're doing this for the first time. My suggestion at this point right now is to take a photo, a clear photo of where these components lie inside the gun. It just means you can always refer back to it later if you get stuck or the little part falls out and you can't work out where it goes, because it can be a bit tricky to get all of these things back in and aligned when you're putting it back together. Right, so while I've got it stripped this far, I'm going to just grab some aerosol gun oil and just give it a quick spray before I start stripping these components out, just so I can sit and soak some. Right, so we're good to go with the start of stripping. I'll just move this plate cover out of the way. And looking at the revolver, I want to take out the catch pins. Just put them to one side. the spring. And then the firing pin. The hammer spring. And that's the first part of the tear down. So next I'm going to want to take out the catches, just move it out the way, and then focus on just cleaning up as much as I can in here. That's now that we've got it stripped down with the components separated, I just want to spin it around and release the catch that would release your cylinder. As I'm going to be polishing this just now, just want to get as much of the little parts off as possible. That's now that we've got it stripped down a little bit further, I'll again just add some lubricating oil to everything so I can just sit and soak. While that's happening, I can also lubricate the cylinder of this gun. I'm going to have to clean all of these components off really well before they go back into the safe. Again, I'll just move those to the side so that it's all out of the way. Right, so next up I'm going to want to remove the cylinder rotator. We do this by just bringing it back slightly, and you should be able to release it moving it straight towards you, like so. Right, so next what I'm going to want to do is release the back spring of the trigger assembly that moves your hammer. Again, I do this by slightly getting in behind it with a flat screwdriver and pressing it straight up towards you, and just be careful, very strong spring inside there, like so. Okay, and then the trigger and the hammer will be free floating without that spring in place. Right, next we're going to want to release the hammer out of the assembly. So we do this by the slide release for the cylinder will block the hammer because it thinks that the cylinder's open. So what we do is just slightly press this back and the hammer will move down slightly just past it. It also clears the firing pin housing right over there, so you'll be able to remove it straight up towards you. Just wiggle it slightly. And the hammer is now free from the firearm. Alright, and then next we're going to want to remove the trigger from its assembly. So what we do here is move the front spring slightly forward so that it releases down, and then we'll be able to release the trigger by just moving it straight up off of its holding pins. And it is now released from the firearm. I'll leave this spring in place for now, as I can clean around that, and just be careful of the very sharp machined edges that are inside here. But while that's stripped, again, just a little bit of oil over it so I can just release any dust and buildup that may be there. Right, so again, a very quick video on getting the revolver stripped down literally to its bare essentials, with the exception of the slide plate for the cylinder and the front spring for the trigger, which is not necessary for us to remove. If you need to, again, very small spring inside there, we would get the screwdriver slightly under it and move it up off of the guide pins. There's guide pins where all of these parts clip back onto when we reassemble this. So yeah, if you have any questions, give us a comment. Remember to like, subscribe, and yeah, catch episode 2 where we polish all the components.